time with Rolex, supporter of the International Sailing Federation.
This month on Mainsail, we're in Sydney, home to the 18-footers. They've been lighting up this harbour and thrilling an Aussie public for over a century.
The Aussie 18s have always been at the vanguard of extreme. From the Great Depression to the decadence of the 70s and 80s, these lightweight, overpowered machines became the rock and roll of sailing. We're here in Sydney Harbour for the 75th edition of the J.J. Giltinan 18-foot Skiff World Championship. The 18s are the original sponsored extreme machines that blazed the trail for the current trend of high-octane arena racing. It's a development class that has fueled innovation and nurtured sailing talent. Talent like young sailor Sevi Jarvan, who's looking to equal a record that has stood for more than 30 years.
There's a fair bit of pressure this year on winning to break the record. There's 37 boats for this fleet. In big fleet racing, anything can sort of happen. And there's so many good guys, like the level keeps stepping up. We've just got to be conservative, just try and stick to our normal plan that we do, and hopefully it pays off.
Jarvan, along with Sam Newton and Scott Babbage, aren't just sailing a boat, they're racing a legacy. The Red Machine is part of Australian sailing folklore, and if Jarvan can lead his team to a 6th title, he'll equal the record of his coach and mentor, Ian Murray, who steered the original Colour 7 to an unassailable 6 straight titles between 1977 and 82. Just as they are today. In the 1970s, Ian Murray would have prepared his boat in this very park. He added his name to a list of champions that spanned nearly a century, and his success defined that decade.
Well, everyone knows the colour machine is 7, 7, gives you orange, yellow, red or green. 7, 7, if you're blue or in the pink, things are better than you think. Just colour your world with the colour machine called 7.
It was a fantastic time. We were young, we were careless. All we wanted to do was build boats and go faster and take more risks. It was all about that. It was all about the thrills and the spills and the desire to be better at it and make a faster widget and win races.
Murray was the one to beat, and he dominated through a combination of radical design and an intense understanding of his machine. He was well funded too, sponsored by a national television channel, and his drive and ambition had a massive impact on the Aussie 18-footers league.
We're all sort of backyard guys having a go and not coming from a lot of money. The skiffs created the sort of euphoria where you literally went out, had a shot. If you won a race, it'd be fantastic. You got a little bit of prize money. It was generally spent over the bar at the club next door, and yeah, that was your weekend sailing. What Ian brought was that next degree of professionalism where he looked at all the aspects, created a business, if you like, out of sailing 18s.
He designed and built his own boats and rigged them himself, and they were just sensational. There'd been a lot of brilliant sailors, I guess, go through the 18-footer class, but he stands out head and shoulders above everyone else.
He was a young kid then out of school, had a very good sponsor in Channel 7, and he had plenty of money, but there were other blokes that had plenty of money. He knew what to do with it. They went to NASA to see what they were building spaceships out of. And he came back with the Nomex pre-impregnated carbon that nobody knew anything about. They built a mould and an oven, but it worked. And just not frightened to take a risk and go out on a limb, and he generally got it right.
I was always in a hurry to do things when I was young, and that probably was the reckless part. I'd take risks, a lot of them calculated, but we lived for the boats. It was all about the boats. It was about going fast, the need to improve, and from plywood boats to carbon fibre boats. We built the first carbon fibre Nomex honeycomb boat in the world in 1978. Took the rest of the world a long time to catch up.
Murray has now brought that meticulous approach to the modern era, mentoring a young crew to once again dominate on the water. The Red 7 name was relaunched after a 25-year absence and has won all but one of the world since 2008.
Channel 7, we spoke about putting a skiff back on the water. You know, they wanted to emulate the opportunity they gave me when I was 17 years old. And Sevi has been given the opportunity. It's not only Sevi, it's everyone else that's been involved in the 7 program. It's created an opportunity for young people to come and find their way up the sailing ladder.
He's sort of like a dad to us really now. For the last 7 years, he's just been awesome. He's always been there for us and he's had the confidence in us, and his work ethic's ridiculous. Like the guy doesn't sleep. You get emails from him at 3 AM and he's there at the boat at 6 in the morning. So the guy's always thinking about things. He's sort of the king of Sydney Harbour. He knows everything about it. I've learned so much just from him.
Now Jarvan can become king and match his mentor's 6 titles with one more perfect week on Sydney Harbour.
Mainsail, in time with Rolex.
We're in Sydney Harbour for the 75th anniversary of the JJs, the 18-foot skiff World Championship, where the legendary Ian Murray is hoping his protege, Sevi Jarvan, can skipper Team 7 to a 6th title and equal his own record. Murray's epic run began in the 1970s, when the weekly league was a big draw, and the world's even more so. What's your first memories of the 18-footers here in Sydney Harbour?
The 18-footers have been part of Sydney. It was an institution in, come and follow your team in the early days that went sailing, and then there was the betting on the races and the big championships. They used to close the headland because it was full. So there's this wonderful history in the 18-footers and this progression, and for young guys like me at the time, it was the way you could come into sailing and express your dreams and your visions and your ideas and your skills.
Runner-up twice to Murray in the early 80s and winner in 2000, John Woody Winning is president of the Australian 18-footers League. He understands the evolution of the sport that began right back in the 1890s.
The start of 18-footers on the harbour was really, the boats were working boats. The fellas that worked them started to sort of have a bit of a fun race here or there. Big boats, 8 foot, even 8'6" wide, enormous crews of 18. But generally crewed by boat builders, sail makers, fellas from foundries that could make fittings. By the 1930s, there were more people involved in the sport, fellas from industry. They probably started to understand more about aerodynamics, and the sails were a bit different. And all the time materials were getting better. They'd realised that things needed to be lighter, then the boats got narrower, it's got better and better.
These new ideas coincided with the Great Depression of the 1930s, and a time when boat owners were understandably interested in more affordable designs. Smaller boats, more manageable crew numbers, but with no loss of performance.
And this was the result: lighter, faster, less crew, but right on the edge of control. These really were a radical design, and they captured the imagination of Sydney's best sailors and also a sports-hungry Aussie public.
The rise of the class was cemented by the success of the first World Championship in 1938, as the JJ Gildan Trophy was born. It made heroes of its sailors, men like Billy Barnett, who now aged 98, still lives above his boathouse right on the harbour. Would there have been lots of boatyards around it?
Yeah, starting from over there where the swimming pool was all boat buildings, right, and 18-footers and 10-footers, right down.
Barnett enjoyed success aboard his skiffs Myra and Myra II during the early days of the JJ Gildan Trophy, winning it in 1951. When you think back to the boats that you sailed, how easy or difficult were they to sail?
Oh, nothing to it really. It became second nature, you know. It was in the blood. Uncles, cousins, grandfathers, all boat builders, sailors. And sport was really popular in those days.
This is my favourite picture with the ferry. It's fantastic. Everybody on one side, tipping over. Love that.
Yeah.
Back in Barnett's day, the ferry was a great way of getting up close to the action, and that tradition remains today.
Many spectators bought a ticket for the ferry, not only to watch the sailing, but to gamble. Thank you.
Though betting on board is illegal and officially frowned on by the 18-footer clubs, it's almost impossible to prevent Australians from having a small gamble on their favourites. Nobody takes this very seriously, but the water police do make a token raid about once a season.
Come on now, get him on.
Who's favourite?
Mojo's favourite, Furloug's second. Seven's too short, he's too good, he's black caviar. Too good.
I'll have some money on Chris Nicholson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thank you.
I come down here, follow them every year. My son won 3 world titles in these things, and yeah, my money's on Furlough Fisher.
It's a great atmosphere on board this ferry, and it seems like, you know, having a little flutter is just, it's part of the class, isn't it? It's tradition.
It's been going for 100 years, and we just carried on. Like in the old days, they used to have 20, 30 bookmakers on every ferry.
Big bucks once traded hands over the Sunday racing. These days, it's just a bit of fun, a part of the show. The real reason for boarding the ferries is to enjoy this, the original arena racing at close quarters.
The leading boats are fairly close together. They're about to get around the first top mark, so this should see some real action.
The guard is coming up, he should be around the mark any time now. Dalton was coming up now on the George's Head shore. A little bit slow on the boat getting that spinnaker out.
The ferries may not be as crowded as they once were, but the boat park is full of past winners of the JJs, a who's who of the Aussie 18s through the years.
Just to be part of history is pretty special, I think. Guys from the 50s come down that won in the 50s and want to have a drink with you, and I mean that's to me that's probably the most special part. The guys don't lose contact with the class. Once they give it away, they're still here every year, and there's some pretty special names in the class.
They give you so much pleasure and excitement, and it's there forever. And you want to come down and see where the boats are going. And the fitness level of the crews has gone up quite considerably since the day I used to sail them, and it's good to see the improvement and the technology coming back into the boats.
They're fascinating boats, they always have been. They've been spectacular. You just get it in your system, in your blood, and it goes on forever. You don't give up. You just love the sport, and it keeps going, and it's just as exciting to watch as it was to sail.
I think what's important to me with the class is that it was there for me to start with in the 70s, and there were a lot of forefathers of the sport. It needs to be kept going.
Woody Winning was a popular winner of the JJs when he won the Millennium Edition after 26 years of trying. His top competitive days may be behind him, but he's still out there racing on Sydney Harbour.
What else am I going to do? There's nothing like sailing these boats, so why stop if you can do it? Hope my wife's not listening. But she understands. I was sailing when I met her, and I'm still sailing, doing what I want to do. I don't know how good I'd be around the house. I need to compete.
We'd all still love to sail them like Johnny Winning. There's a real romance with these boats and a real thrill of being on a platform that's leaping out of the water, and I think the people that have been involved in this class, it's a way of life for them almost. They come and support, they watch, and luckily for me, I can still fiddle and fidget and help Sevy and keep the Channel 7 thing going.
The week was going well for Team 7. Jarvan and the boys had built a healthy lead after 5 of the 7 races. And although they hadn't shaken off the challenge from 2-times champion Michael Coxon and Thurlow Fisher, Jarvan could sense that Murray had relaxed just a little.
We've finally had a good start today, so he's been telling us all week, you've got to get off the start line, you've got to get off the start line. And we finally got off the start line, so he was happy with that. And yeah, it was the first time he congratulated us, I think, today. We sort of started pretty good, we're pretty happy.
He's been a bit nervous too.
Yeah, he's been ageing a lot, I think, the last week. We've been like this, with the up and down, but he's starting to get a little bit happier now, I think.
At the end of the day's racing, the crews relax together. They compete hard on the water, but you can feel the close-knit skiff community. And in the boat park, they're all smiles ahead of the weekend finale.
Mainsail, in time with Rolex.
We're in Sydney for the 75th 18-foot skiff World Championship. And Team 7 skipper Sevi Jarvan is poised to equal his mentor Ian Murray's record of 6 titles, which he completed back in 1982.
How will you feel if they win this year and also, I suppose, equal your record?
It's not about my record, it's about the success of the team. You've seen out there, you know, they're world class at handling their boat. If it provides them with an opportunity to go further on into the world of sailing and reach the pinnacle, that makes me a happy person.
He doesn't want to put any extra pressure on ourselves, and he sort of keeps it pretty cool. He's such an always happy guy. But you know deep down how much he wants us to win.
But the red boat has no divine right to prevail. There's a fleet of 36 18-footers, all drawn by the thrill of testing nerve and reflex in these super fast and still revolutionary monohulls.
They are the Formula One boats of the water. There's nothing else that compares to the boat speed. There's nothing else that compares to the sheer exhilaration of sailing an 18-foot skiff in 25 knots. They're fantastic.
The thrill that you get sailing these boats, it's not just going fast, because otherwise you'd buy a catamaran. There's a calculated risk in these. There's the adrenaline when you're spearing down Sydney Harbour in a black nor'easter with a seaway. You're living on the edge. If you get it wrong, it's all over.
It's just a hard boat to sail, and we've had in the past a lot of top, Olympic sailors, America's Cup sailors come and try it, and it does normally take a few years to sort of work it out, and I guess that's part of the challenge.
I normally sit down in boats. You got it?
All right, you can go on the wall.
Me? Yep. So high up.
If Olympic champions struggle to master the skiffs, then I just had to give it a go.
I've been watching these boats sailing this harbour since I was a child. I can't tell you how cool this is. And how difficult. Don't you fall over. I'm relying on you. I thought we were going to play it safe.
Right now, just flatten her off. Flatten fast.
You want to dive?
All right. Okay, stand by. The jibe was all right, but I'm on the floor here. Okay, not very elegant. But I'm there. We're flying. It's good. This is what it's about. What a team.
So to the final race, and Red 7 so far have been making it all look easy. Is Sevi Jarvan about to make it a record-equalling 6 titles, or can someone out there stop him?
Historically, Channel 7, or Gotta Love It 7, has owned this trophy. It's by far the most dominant sponsor around, and obviously they're setting themselves nice and pretty this week as well. But they're also great young guys. It just shows the talent that comes out of Australia. It's around the woodwork.
They just put together a really good, solid regatta. Smart sailing and flawless crew work kind of does that for you. There's no shame in losing to those guys. They run a really nice program.
Oh, they are beatable. What you've noticed, it has been a fickle breezes and it's been unsettled, but I think what that does is brings in more variables, and it's not as certain. It's not so much of a drag race where it comes down to boat speed, and undoubtedly they are the fastest and smoothest boat out there, so when it is fair conditions, they're going to be very hard to beat.
From the start of the deciding race, Jarvan had Gotta Love It 7 right where he needed to be, in front, locked in a battle with ASCO Appliances and the New Zealand boat Yamaha. With Red 7's closest title challengers Thurlow Fisher way down the fleet, things were looking good for the record. Then the Kiwis dropped out of the running on the downwind leg, perhaps lacking the local knowledge that can be so crucial in Sydney Harbour. And as Ian Murray looked on, his boys were there with the chance of a perfect finish. But the crew of ASCO didn't fold, and Red 7 was passed on the final run to the finish line. It didn't matter. Second place was enough for the red boat to secure overall victory and a record-equalling 6th JJ Gilman trophy. A moment in history for Sam Newton, Scotty Babbage and Sevi Jarvan.
Just awesome. These two guys did an awesome job, and the whole week worked out really good, and we're unbelievably happy.
There's one man with an even bigger smile on his face than you today, and that's Ian Murray.
Yeah, well, big fella's awesome. I think he's probably going to get in a bit of trouble at the moment. He's probably spending more time on this than the America's Cup. We can't thank him enough. He's the best, really. He's a legend in his class. He's unbelievable.
And the unbelievable big fella believes in his protégés. He has signed Jarvin and Newton as crew members for Team Australia, the America's Cup Challenge, where Ian Murray is CEO. A massive project with national pride at stake. But his long journey with Red 7 has brought intense personal satisfaction.
You sort of put a lot of work into these things, and when a plan goes well, it's all smiles, really. It's satisfying to see the guys sail well, and they did that again today. That's sort of the important thing, you know. I like tinkering with the boats, and when they sail it well, it makes for a happy ending.
And the boys did good.
They did do well. It's been an interesting journey over many years, and as they progress and they mature, and you can see, you know, they're ready for bigger things.
And there's nothing bigger than the America's Cup. The next step in Team Australia's campaign was launched during the Skiff Championship here in Sydney. For sure, it's the 18-footer tradition that makes the Aussies so strong in the new, fast, radical boats used in the Cup. And at the Olympics too, where they were the top sailing nation at London 2012. Here is a country planning to take on the might of America's Cup defender, Team Oracle USA. This campaign has really impressive DNA, a legacy of sailing and technical talent that's been passed down through the generations for well over a century. As Ian Murray guides this campaign, backed by the wealthy Oatley family and watched by men like Woody Winning, Billy Barnett and Hugh Traherne, the tactician when Australia won the Cup back in '83. This fiercely competitive nation wants the Cup back down under. The ingenuity and the innovation that has been nurtured out on the waters of Sydney Harbour has created a sailing heritage that money really can't buy.
Mainsail, in time with Rolex, supporter of the International Sailing Federation.